Hi guys, and welcome to my Konmari journey where I'm working through the life-changing magic of tidying up by Mari Kondo. And today we're working in the kimono section, which is miscellaneous, and our subcategory is hobbies. So my hobbies include sewing, knitting, crocheting, and scrapbooking. So I have a lot of hobby supplies to go through. And today we are going to be going through my sewing patterns. Now I have a lot of sewing patterns. I have a lot of vintage sewing patterns, and I also have some costuming sewing patterns, and I also have a lot of tracings of vintage sewing patterns. So this is going to kind of be a big section to work through, and I just want to kind of apologize up front for the status of my sewing room, because I have been using this area as kind of a staging area for all of the decluttering process. So I have a lot of my donate pile still in this room while I'm waiting for my next donation trip. So it's kind of a little crazy in here, but we're just gonna roll with it. Okay, so first I wanted to show you where I keep my sewing patterns, and they are kind of spread out throughout the room. So this is my little cube divider. I've already been through those books, and this drawer right here has some sewing patterns in it. So these are a lot of my reproduction sewing patterns. I got my wearing history. This is some Sense and Sensibility, and some other reprinted patterns that they're kind of a little bit larger, and so they really need this kind of tall box to fit in. Okay, then I have some sewing patterns in this drawer. So I have some of my modern sewing patterns. Like you can see, there's a Colette pattern right there, and I have some Sewaholic ones. Also kind of overflow vintage patterns. There's a pile over here on the floor of vintage patterns that I decided to get rid of before starting the Konmari process. So those have not left the house either. Okay, and then there's this top shelf in my closet. The small drawer is historical patterns. The big drawer is copies, tracings of vintage patterns, and then way in the back corner I have two boxes back there full of vintage patterns. So I'm going to pull all this out and hopefully clear a big enough space on the floor to really take a look at these items. Oh my goodness, you guys, I did not realize how many patterns I had. Like, it's the entire room, and they didn't all fit. Like, seriously. I mean, I'm stuck in the corner trying to film this so you guys can see them all. Whew. Okay, anyways, starting up at the top. Wearing history patterns. Love me some wearing history. I have a couple of vintage pattern lending library. There's a folkwear, some Sense and Sensibility. These are past patterns, and then some Eva dress. So those are kind of my repro patterns up the top. Then some vintage fancy dress, and those are some kid patterns. And then these are my vintage patterns. I've got them kind of in chronological-ish order. So I'm just going to kind of pan so we can kind of, oh, you can't even see them all. But you can take a peek at some of my lovelies. Ooh, let's start over here. I mean, they're all like stunningly gorgeous with the envelope illustrations, but seriously, I'm not ever going to make all of these. There's just too many. And you know what? Some of them I've already made, and I don't think I'll make again. Not because they're bad patterns, just because how many times do you need to make a pattern? Oh yeah. Yeah. And then up here, we got some Colette patterns, some of their older styles, Sewaholic, and then some vintage Vogue. Yeah. Okay. Now comes the time to start sorting. Yeah. So we shall see about that. I'm going to start with my reproduction patterns because I think those will be a little easier for me. Okay, so here are my 2 piles of repro patterns to keep. There's just 3 piles. And then I have 2 piles over here. This pile is going to a sell/donate pile. This is a pile for trash. These are ones that have been used, they've been cut up, they've been altered, so they really can't be used by anybody else. Yeah. Now I get to start moving on to all of these patterns. Okay, so I just wanted to do a little bit of check-in so far. So what I did with these patterns is I decided to sort them the way that I have done my clothes in the past. So I have 3 piles. I have yes, definitely, maybe, and go. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. The go pile is nice and huge. It's good. Keep pile's not too big. Then I'm going to go back through the maybes. A lot of the maybes are my earlier patterns, my early 40s and my 30s patterns that I love the way that the patterns look. I'm not 100% sure that I love the way that the finished product looks on me. So yeah, I'm going to have to think about these a little bit more. Alright, so these are all my go patterns. I've kind of separated them by piles. I have 60s, 50s, late 40s, YR 40s, early 40s, and 30s patterns. So yeah, that's a lot. And these are the keepers. You can see I've definitely reduced by a lot. We have 30s, early 40s, YR 40s, late 40s, 50s, and 60s. So a good spread there. Okay, so here are all the tracings of my pattern. You can see some of them I was good, and I included a copy of the cover. Some of them I even copied the directions, and some of them are just bags of tracing. So I'm going to go through these and kind of get rid of probably, hopefully, a lot. I really don't feel like I need to keep a bunch of these, especially if their patterns ended up in the go pile. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so I've gone ahead and gotten finished with the tracings, and also I went ahead and did my historical ones as well. These are all the ones that are going. Most of these are tracings of patterns I have decided to get rid of, and then I decided to get rid of a couple of my Simplicity historical patterns just because I am not happy with their level of historical accuracy, and I do have my Tudor Tailor and Patterns of Fashion up there where I can get significantly more historically accurate patterns, although this one has never been used, so I'll probably put this one in the donate box. Okay, this used to have all of my historical patterns and tracings. They are no longer in here. They all fit into here in this drawer, and I went through and I labeled them and put them in baggies because there was a whole bunch of pieces just out and floating around, which was kind of okay when it was just in this little box, but now it's going into the big box with also my vintage pattern tracings. They need to be a little bit more organized, so that's exciting. I emptied an organizer. just to give you guys one last update here, we have a bag of donate, a bag of trash. These are things that are patterns to sell, probably. Some of them maybe donate. And I wanted to kind of show you all the empties so far. Empty, empty. That bottom one just has empty Ziploc bags in it from the tracings I got rid of. Empty, 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 empty. Yep. Super happy. And this shelf is a lot more spacious so far. So that is super awesome. Alright, so I finally finished all of my patterns. That took a lot longer and was a lot more exhausting than I was expecting. When they're all stacked nice and neat, all vertically in the little boxes, it doesn't look like I have that much. But I really, really did have a lot. And I feel good about the amount I was able to let go of. And I feel really good about the ones I was going to keep. I probably could have let go of some more, but you know, some of these are definitely kind of sentimental. I have a lot of emotional attachment to, and so that was kind of a little bit tricky in this category. So this is probably a category that I would want to revisit maybe in 6 months or a year and kind of do over. So yeah, we'll see. But so far I'm super excited about how the sewing room is progressing, and I'll be really excited once all the donate and trash gets out of here.